There comes a moment in every woman's life when she begins to ask questions not out of confusion, but out of quiet strength. A moment when she is no longer chasing things that sparkle on the outside, but instead begins to search for the fire that is waiting to rise from within. This speech is for that woman, the one standing at the edge of a transformation, the one who senses that power is not given, it is built, habit by habit, breath by breath, day by day. The world will not hand you peace. It will not deliver discipline to your doorstep. It will not carve out time for your growth. But if you can learn to govern your morning, to master your movements, to command your mind, you will realize that true power was never external. It was always resting silently inside you, waiting for you to become still enough, strong enough, silent enough to awaken it. The first habit every woman must master is the art of beginning before the world does. Rise early, not just to chase time, but to sit with yourself while the world sleeps. Before the noise, before the messages, before the comparisons, meet your own breath. Sit in silence. This stillness is not empty. It is filled with answers that only appear in the quiet. The modern world tells you to hustle, but inner strength is born in the silence you dare to keep. The second habit is movement, not to chase an image, but to build a temple. The body is not your enemy. It is not something to hide, shrink, or punish. It is your vessel, your teacher, your armor. You must move it daily, not from shame, but from reverence. Discipline in motion sharpens the mind. A strong body does not come from ego, but from devotion. The more you respect your body through consistent action, the more it will respect you in return. The third habit is order. Clean your space and you begin to clean your thoughts. Fold your clothes and your mind folds into structure. Wash the dishes and you wash away chaos. Order is not about perfection. It is about choosing clarity over confusion. When your outer world reflects calm and purpose, your inner world follows. Do not wait for motivation to organize your life. Become the kind of woman who builds beauty through discipline. The fourth habit is a ruthless protection of your focus. In a world drowning in noise, clarity is power. Train your mind to return to one thing, one task, one breath, one thought. The woman who can sit still, the woman who can listen without reacting, the woman who can say no without guilt. She holds a power that cannot be shaken. Concentration is not a skill you are born with. It is a habit you build like a warrior sharpens her blade. These are not just habits, they are weapons. And each day you sharpen them, you become a little more unshakable, a little more luminous, a little more untouchable by the chaos around you. You do not need permission to become powerful. You do not need applause to be valuable. You only need to master the small things, again and again, until you become the storm you once feared. Let every woman hear this. You are not too late. You are not too soft. You are not too broken. You are only one choice away, from discipline, from stillness, from strength, from truth. Begin again, today, and do not stop. There was once a woman who lived a life full of potential, yet her days felt like sand slipping through her fingers. She wasn't weak, she wasn't lost, but something inside her knew she was capable of more. And so one morning, without telling anyone, she decided to change, not with a grand declaration or sudden upheaval, but with one small promise to herself: I will rise before the world does. The alarm rang before the sun. Her body resisted, her thoughts were cloudy, but she rose. Not because she wanted to, but because she had made a choice. And in that choice lay the seed of power. She stepped into the stillness of dawn, a quiet so deep that it almost scared her. But in that silence, she began to hear something she hadn't in a long time herself. This is where discipline is born. Not in the loud moments of performance, but in the quiet hours where no one is watching. A woman becomes strong, not when she announces her transformation to the world, but when she honors it in the unseen hours, when her feet touch the cold floor while the rest of the world is still dreaming. That first step in the morning is not just a step out of bed, it's a step into self-respect, into command, into mastery. The first few mornings are always the hardest. The mind is clever. It whispers of comfort, of delay, of excuses disguised as logic. But the woman who has tasted even a second of clarity knows better. She does not argue with her inner resistance. She moves through it. She gets up even when she doesn't feel ready, because she knows that readiness is not a feeling, it is a decision. She begins her day not by scrolling, not by rushing, but by being. She sits, she breathes, and in that breath she finds herself. That simple act of sitting in stillness becomes her training ground. The world will later try to pull her in 1,000 directions, but now, in this moment, she is whole, she is unmoved, she is sovereign. Over time, this morning ritual becomes more than a habit. It becomes her foundation. She does not negotiate with the alarm clock anymore. She does not seek motivation. She has built something stronger, discipline. Motivation flickers, discipline endures. Discipline is not loud or flashy. It is quiet, but it carries weight. And when a woman becomes disciplined, she begins to speak a different language to the universe. She says, I am ready. I am not waiting. I am not hoping. I am becoming. And so her mornings stretch out in rhythm. She moves through her routine not with haste, but with presence. She prepares her tea, feeling the warmth against her hands. She journals her thoughts, watching her mind unfold on the page. She reads, studies, sharpens her awareness. Every action becomes sacred, every movement intentional. She is no longer reacting to life, she is creating it. People begin to notice a shift. She carries herself differently. Her eyes are clearer, her words fewer but sharper. She doesn't speak of discipline, she embodies it. Her power is not in what she says, but in how she shows up. While others are searching for balance, she has already found it in the structure she built through repetition. There are days when fatigue returns, when the body aches and the mind protests. But she does not negotiate. She honors the rhythm she has chosen. Even on the hard days, especially on the hard days, she keeps her rituals. Because she understands a truth few ever learn. Discipline is freedom. The woman who can control her time can control her reality. And the woman who owns her morning owns her life. Eventually, she doesn't even think about waking up early anymore. It's not a task, it's her identity. She has become the kind of woman who does not delay her growth. She does not wait for inspiration. She does not need permission. She acts, and in doing so, she has crossed a threshold. She has become trustworthy to herself. That is the real gift of discipline. It builds trust. Every time she shows up for herself, she sends a message to her own soul. I can count on you. And there is no greater strength than being able to count on yourself. Because when storms come, when doubt creeps in, when life breaks apart, she does not fall into chaos. She returns to what she knows, her rituals, her breath, her stillness. The woman who began her journey with a single promise has become unrecognizable, even to herself. Not because she's changed everything overnight, but because she has mastered the invisible. She has learned that power is not something you acquire in a moment. It is something you earn in the unseen hours, over and over, until it becomes who you are. She is not perfect. She is not always fearless, but she is disciplined. And that discipline makes her unstoppable. While others seek shortcuts, she takes the stairs. While others look for external validation, she finds her truth in the mirror every morning. And while others are controlled by the chaos of the day, she moves with intention, anchored by the structure she has built with her own hands. This is not just a habit, it is a way of being, a declaration, a quiet revolution, a reminder to every woman who has forgotten her strength that power is not found. It is built, day by day, breath by breath, step by sacred step. There is a power so rare, so misunderstood, that most people spend their entire lives avoiding it. It makes them uncomfortable. It forces them to face things they would rather run from. But for the woman who is ready to grow, not just exist, but truly evolve, this power becomes her closest companion. It is the power of stillness. And the woman who masters it becomes unshakable. She does not rush into the day. She does not fill every gap with noise. She does not fear silence. In fact, she invites it. She knows that in the stillness, everything becomes clear. Her emotions, her patterns, her truth, they rise to the surface not when she is busy, but when she is still. The modern world calls it laziness. But she knows better. She knows that stillness is not doing nothing. It is doing the hardest thing of all. Being with yourself, fully, without distraction. In the beginning, stillness feels impossible. She sits, but her mind races. She closes her eyes, but her body twitches. Her thoughts scream louder than the quiet around her. Everything in her begs to move, to scroll, to eat, to talk, to do something. But she stays, and in that staying she begins to break an old habit, the addiction to noise. We live in a world that trains women to be constantly available, constantly doing, constantly pleasing. But the woman who is on the path to mastery learns to do something radical. She removes herself from the chaos and listens, not to the outside world, but to her own soul. She begins to understand that silence is not empty, it is a mirror, and what it reflects is her truth, unfiltered and raw. As the days pass, her stillness deepens. It's no longer just about sitting with her eyes closed. It becomes a way of being. She walks more slowly. She speaks with intention. She listens, not just to others, but to the space between words. She becomes aware of how often people fill silence to avoid themselves. She no longer feels the need to explain everything. She lets the silence speak for her, and it does, powerfully. There is a certain presence that comes with stillness. People begin to feel it when she walks into a room. She doesn't need to raise her voice. She doesn't need to dominate. Her calm becomes her command. Her quiet becomes her influence. This isn't a performance. This is the result of inner work, of sitting in the fire of her own discomfort until it no longer burns her. Stillness teaches her patience. She begins to see that not everything needs an immediate response. Not every emotion needs to be reacted to. Not every thought needs to be believed. She becomes the observer of her own mind, watching without judgment, allowing the waves to rise and fall without being swept away. And in that observation she finds power. The power to choose her response. The power to act rather than react. The power to wait for the right moment, instead of forcing the wrong one. With stillness also comes clarity. She no longer chases things that were never meant for her. She no longer clings to people out of fear. She no longer says yes when she means no. Because when she is quiet, she can hear the voice that never lies, the one within. And that voice is not loud. It whispers. It nudges. It waits for her to become still enough to notice it. The world may never understand her transformation. They may ask, why don't you speak more? Or why are you so calm? But she doesn't need them to understand. Her peace is not for show. It is her weapon. In a world where people are shouting to be heard, she chooses to whisper. In a world that worships speed, she moves like a river, slow, strong, and unstoppable. Stillness also becomes her source of healing. She no longer needs to outrun her past. She can sit with it. She can breathe through the pain without drowning in it. And as she does, she notices something remarkable. The same silence that once made her uncomfortable now holds her gently. The same quiet that once felt empty is now filled with wisdom. She no longer fears being alone, because in stillness she has met the one person who will never leave her, herself. Over time, stillness becomes her anchor. When storms come, and they always do, she doesn't panic. She returns to her breath. She returns to the present. She returns to what is real. And from that place of stillness, she makes her decisions. She speaks only when it adds to the silence. She moves only when her energy is aligned. She chooses only what brings her peace. And in doing so, she becomes untouchable, not because life stops testing her, but because she no longer reacts like she used to. She has trained herself to pause, to reflect, to hold herself in the quiet before she moves forward. And that pause, that breath, that moment of stillness, that is where her power lives. Stillness is not weakness. It is mastery. It is the mastery of emotion, the mastery of thought, the mastery of presence. And the woman who can sit in silence and feel whole, that woman has found a strength the world cannot take away. She no longer rushes to prove herself. She no longer competes for attention. She no longer explains her worth. She simply is. And that is enough. That is more than enough. Because stillness is not the absence of movement. It is the foundation of powerful movement. It is the calm that precedes the storm. The inhale before the leap, the grounding before the rise. And the woman who rises from stillness, she does not rise like others. She rises with the full force of everything she's faced, everything she's felt, everything she's forgiven. She rises not to be seen, but to see clearly. And when she does, nothing can stop her. There's something subtle yet undeniable about the way a woman carries herself when her outer world is in harmony with her inner world. You can see it in the way she walks into a room, calm and composed, like she belongs there, not because someone told her she does, but because she knows it deeply. This kind of presence isn't accidental. It's not luck or a gift. It's the result of something she has built with her own hands, with her own attention, day by day. She has learned the truth. Your environment is a mirror of your mind. She wasn't always this way. There was a time when she felt overwhelmed by the chaos around her. Piles of clothes, unread messages, cluttered thoughts, broken routines. It all blurred together. She felt foggy, anxious, easily agitated. She tried to fix it by controlling others, by escaping into entertainment, by overcommitting. But nothing worked. Until one day, she realized something profound. The mess around her wasn't just about laundry or dishes. It was a reflection of how scattered she had become inside. And so she began with the smallest step. She cleaned her space, not out of obligation, but as a silent act of reclaiming herself. She didn't rush. She didn't try to change everything in a day. She just began. One drawer, one shelf, one corner. And as she did, something inside her shifted. With every item put in place, her mind began to clear. The fog started to lift, and beneath it she found a stillness she didn't know she had been craving. Her space became a sanctuary, not just a setting, a place where she could breathe deeply, a place that whispered, "You're safe here." She realized that every object carries energy, every wall holds memory, and if she wanted peace inside, she needed to make peace with her surroundings. No more keeping things just in case, no more clinging to items tied to old pain. She released what no longer served her, not just physically, but emotionally. This wasn't about being perfect. It wasn't about making her home look like a magazine. It was about honoring herself through her environment, about creating space that reflected her values, her focus, her growth. The more she simplified her surroundings, the sharper her focus became, the cleaner her room, the calmer her thoughts. She no longer woke up feeling behind. She began her mornings with ease, with order, with clarity. Her outer world had become a reflection of her inner commitment. Soon it extended beyond her room. She paid attention to what she allowed into her space, what music played, what shows ran in the background, what kind of conversations echoed through the walls. She became selective, not out of arrogance, but out of alignment. If something didn't support her peace, it didn't belong. That was her new standard. People noticed. They asked what had changed. She hadn't said a word, but they could feel it. Her energy had shifted. She was more focused, more grounded. She didn't rush. She didn't apologize for her presence. She moved through her day with a quiet confidence, because her foundation, both internal and external, was solid. And when challenges came, as they always do, she didn't crumble like she used to. She had trained herself to return to order. She had created a rhythm in her environment that reminded her who she was. Even when life felt chaotic, her space was no longer just a home. It was her temple, her training ground, her mirror. This transformation wasn't dramatic. It didn't require anyone else's approval. It was built in silence, in the background, in the hours no one applauded. And yet it was powerful. Because every time she chose to put her space in order, she was putting herself back into alignment. Every time she lit a candle, or made her bed, or cleared her desk, she was sending a message to her subconscious: I am worth the effort. I am worth the clarity. I am worth the peace. This is not just about tidiness. It is about taking full responsibility for your world. It's about no longer waiting for peace to arrive. It's about creating it, shaping it, becoming it. Every drawer you clean, every item you release, every corner you beautify, it's a declaration. A quiet one, but a powerful one. And so she kept going. Her space now supports her goals. It supports her rest. It supports her joy. And more than anything, it supports her growth. She no longer feels like she's drowning in distraction. She has built an environment that reflects her evolution. There is a reason monks live in simplicity. There is a reason warriors maintain their weapons. The space you keep is not neutral. It either fuels you or drains you. And the woman who understands this doesn't wait for motivation. She becomes the kind of person who cultivates peace through her daily choices. She no longer walks into clutter and chaos. She walks into alignment, into clarity, into a space that says, this is who I am becoming. And that space, that energy, that intention, it follows her everywhere. Because it was never really about the room, it was about her. There is a kind of strength that cannot be faked. It doesn't come from how loud you speak or how much you accomplish in a day. It doesn't come from titles, attention, or applause. It comes from something deeper, something ancient, something that women have always carried but sometimes forget. That strength lives in the body, not in how it looks, but in how it moves. Not in how it performs for the world, but in how it honors the truth inside. The body is not just a physical form. It is the gateway to mastering the mind. She didn't always understand this. Like many, she was taught to treat her body as a project, something to fix, to shrink, to improve. Every mirror became a battlefield, every meal a calculation. But over time, the pressure grew heavy. She became tired of waging war against herself. She began to ask a new question, not how do I look, but how do I feel? And that question changed everything. She started to listen, not to the voices outside, but to the signals within. The tightness in her chest, the knots in her stomach, the heaviness in her legs, the fatigue she used to ignore. All of it was speaking to her, not in words, but in sensations. The body had always been trying to tell her something. She just hadn't learned how to listen. So she made a different choice. She began to move, not to punish herself, but to connect. Every stretch became a release. Every breath during movement became a prayer. Her workouts were no longer about chasing an image. They became rituals of power, discipline, and clarity. The more she moved, the more she remembered. Her strength, her grace, her resilience. Not because someone told her, but because she felt it in her bones. She began walking with her shoulders back, not for attention, but because she felt solid. She stood taller, not because she wanted to impress, but because she had nothing to hide. Her posture became a reflection of her internal foundation. She didn't need to say she was grounded. You could see it. You could feel it in her presence. The more she honored her body, the more her mind shifted. She noticed how daily movement created momentum in other parts of her life. Her discipline with her body gave birth to clarity in her decisions. Her focus during training spilled into her work, her relationships, her goals. She was no longer scattered. She was sharp. The body, once treated as an afterthought, had become her greatest ally. Even on the days when she didn't feel like moving, especially on those days she showed up. Not for perfection, but for consistency. Because she knew that motion changes emotion. The weight of anxiety lightens with movement. The fog of overthinking clears with motion. She wasn't trying to escape her emotions. She was learning to move through them, with presence and awareness. Her body also became her teacher in another way. It taught her limits. And more importantly, it taught her how to respect those limits. She stopped glorifying burnout. She stopped ignoring pain. She realized that real strength is not pushing through until you break. Real strength is knowing when to rest, when to breathe, when to slow down. And in that rest, she healed parts of herself she didn't even know were hurting. The journey with her body was not always easy. Some days it felt strong, other days it felt heavy and unfamiliar. But she stayed with it. She kept showing up, and in doing so she rewrote the story. She stopped waiting for her body to be perfect to love it. She loved it by taking care of it, by trusting it, by learning its rhythms. She also stopped comparing. The body is not a competition. It is not a number, not a measurement, not a trend. It is a vessel. It is the bridge between what you feel and what you express. And the woman who can command her body with grace, who can train it with love, who can honor it with discipline, that woman has access to a power that most overlook. Because mastering the body is not just about strength, it is about presence, about awareness, about being here fully, not lost in thought, not consumed by judgment, but rooted in the now. Every squat, every push-up, every yoga pose, every deep breath, it pulls her back into the present, and that presence sharpens everything. Her relationships improve because she's more present. Her emotions become clearer because she feels them in the body before they spiral in the mind. Her decisions become wiser because they are grounded, not reactive. The discipline of moving with intention, of nourishing the body, of resting when needed, it builds not just physical strength but mental clarity and emotional resilience. She understands now that the body and mind are not separate. You cannot sharpen one while neglecting the other. You cannot master the mind while abandoning the vessel that carries it. The woman who trains her body trains her focus. The woman who listens to her body learns the language of wisdom. The woman who honors her body learns how to honor her life. And so she continues, not out of fear, not out of vanity, but out of devotion. Her daily movement is not about getting smaller. It is about taking up space with strength, with presence, with grace. She no longer hides from her power. She wears it, she walks with it, she embodies it. Because in the end, it is not enough to think clearly. You must move clearly. It is not enough to speak your truth. You must stand in it. The body is not separate from your journey. It is the foundation. And the woman who learns to trust her body will always find her way home. When a woman chooses to build herself day by day, habit by habit, she does not simply become better. She becomes unforgettable. She becomes the kind of force that doesn't knock on the door of opportunity. She breaks it open with the strength she's earned in silence. The world does not shape her. She shapes the world. Because while others wait to feel ready, she rises in the darkness before dawn and makes herself ready. While others chase what's temporary, she builds what is eternal. Discipline, presence, clarity, peace. There comes a moment when she no longer asks for motivation, because her discipline is already standing where motivation used to be. She no longer craves validation, because her confidence is no longer rented from opinions. It is owned, built from the ground up by the woman who dared to show up when no one else did. And this is her power. Not in her perfection, but in her persistence. Not in her noise, but in her stillness. Not in what she owns, but in what she masters. The mind, the body, the space around her, and the soul within her. In a world that applauds speed, she moves with intention. In a culture obsessed with constant noise, she embraces the silence. In a society where people scroll to escape themselves, she sits with herself, breath by breath, until the truth rises like smoke from the fire she never let go out. This woman, the one who chooses mastery over mediocrity, becomes the one others cannot ignore. Because while others are busy performing, she is becoming. This is not about grand moments. It's not about standing on stages or gaining millions of followers. It's about what she does when no one's clapping, when the lights are off, when the world isn't watching. It's about who she is when the pressure rises. Does she break or does she breathe and rise anyway? You see, how she does the small things is how she does everything. And when she starts owning the little things, the way she wakes up, the way she treats her body, the way she curates her space, her life begins to respond. Life bends in favor of the focused. The universe moves for the woman who moves with courage. There is no shortcut, no cheat code, no backdoor to greatness. As one great quote says, you must be willing to do the things today others won't do, to have the things tomorrow others won't have. It's not talent. It's not fate. It's habits. It's consistency. It's showing up for yourself even on the days when your voice trembles and your legs feel heavy. It's reminding yourself again and again, I didn't come this far to only come this far. She begins to understand that success isn't something to chase. It's something you attract by the person you become. And she chooses every single day to become someone worthy of the life she envisions. She no longer talks about potential, she walks in it. She doesn't just set goals, she aligns her daily life with them. While others hope, she executes. While others wish, she works. While others dream, she disciplines herself to make that dream her reality. She understands now that becoming the best version of herself is not a destination. It's a decision made over and over. When it's hard, when it's boring, when it's lonely. As Jim Rohn once said, discipline is the bridge between goals and accomplishment. She walks that bridge daily. And that walk, though it's invisible to the world, is everything. That walk creates the momentum that no setback can stop. She no longer asks, what if I fail? Instead, she asks, what if I fly? Because every great story started with a woman who chose to try one more time, to stand up one more time, to trust herself one more time. And she knows deep in her bones that the version of herself she's becoming is worth every early morning, every quiet evening, every lonely decision that no one clapped for. As Les Brown said, you don't have to be great to get started, but you have to get started to be great. And she has started. There will still be storms. Doubts will still come knocking, but she is no longer easily shaken. Why? Because she has built herself on something real, on habits, on stillness, on strength, on self-trust. The world may throw chaos at her, but she has trained in calm. The world may demand her attention, but she has trained her focus. The world may try to shape her, but she has already shaped herself. She is no longer impressed by what is loud. She is moved by what is true, and truth lives in action. Truth lives in the moments when she chooses to rise instead of shrink, to breathe instead of break, to lead herself when no one else can. As Muhammad Ali once said, I hated every minute of training, but I said don't quit, suffer now and live the rest of your life as a champion. That's what she's doing. She is suffering now, training now, sharpening now, so that the life she lives will be one of peace, purpose and power. And one day she will look back and realize she never needed permission. She never needed the world to choose her. She only needed to choose herself. She only needed to become disciplined in her rituals, rooted in her stillness, intentional in her environment, and strong in her body. That was her formula. That was her foundation. The woman who chooses this path becomes the example others never had. She becomes the spark, the fire, the storm. The stillness after the storm. She becomes a living reminder that it is possible to rise, to rebuild, to become. Not through luck, not through shortcuts, but through 10 simple habits practiced with devotion. And if you're still wondering where to begin, the answer is simple. Begin now. Begin with one breath, one choice, one habit, and do it again tomorrow. Because every extraordinary woman you admire began as a woman who just decided she was done waiting. Now it's your turn.